And we are back. Welcome to Shark Coast Tactical Podcast 34. We are here with very special guest, Vadim.
How we doing?
We're doing well.
Good.
And Omer.
Hello.
Luke Andrews.
What's up?
And the amazing Dean Carroll.
One and only.
The one and only. Hey, so Vadim did a podcast with us detailing his search for the swamp ape and different, stories of the supernatural and occurrences. And Vadim is a good customer of ours. He also is my personal concierge to buying automobiles. If you ever need something, go check him out at Sarasota Ford. I bought every car that I've used in the past 10 years.
I think I sold you five, a total of five.
Five. But we wanted to bring Vadim back because we got to talking about Ukraine. And Ukraine's a hot subject always. So Vadim is from
Latvia,
Riga. And we thought we would bring him in and give it a unique perspective on Ukraine. But before we do that, I think there's something we have to bring up. Because you are a fan of conspiracies and all things weird, right?
Absolutely.
The JFK files were released today.
Yes.
Right. And and I thought maybe we could open the podcast with that because I'm sure everybody on the panel has something to say. Because what's the name of freaky shit? Like the scientific name of it? COVID? What is it? What's that word?
Conspiracies.
Yeah, but there was a word for what is it, Luke?
I don't know what you're referring to.
Cryptids.
Cryptids. Yeah.
Cryptid.
Oh yeah. Right.
So like you're part of the cryptid community. Like you're into just weird shit. You're into weird shit, guns, selling cars. You're into a bunch of mountain bikes,
Documentary making.
But so I figured you'd probably be into the JFK assassination. Am I right?
Well, I'm in all sorts of conspiracies. And that's definitely one.
That's
of them.
definitely one of them.
But from what I understand, what they released today doesn't really prove anything or tell us.
There's something in there. There's something in there what they released. But what about Dean? I know that you fucking you just want guns.
I didn't even get to say it yet.
Dean, the problem is if you want to just talk guns, you got to shoot more than just long range.
I shoot pistols and...
I know. When's the last time you shot pistols?
What was that? Last weekend.
Nah, you were sick last weekend.
But I still went out because I had something to do with a friend and his wife, teaching his wife to shoot.
You didn't tell me that.
I don't tell you guys a lot of things.
Really? I tell you everything, dude.
Do you?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I tell you everything.
I still shoot a lot of pistols. And not a lot, but yeah, long range mainly. But I still shoot pistols.
But the thing that, Dean, you were just consumed with things you like. You're not really. It's hard to talk with you about guns unless it's about your staccato or about your match that you did. You don't care about shit half the time.
I don't care about a lot of stuff. I got a lot of hobbies. We got a good amount of hobbies, though.
Okay.
We got a good amount.
What do you think about the Kennedy assassination thing?
Well, I didn't get to see anything that came out today. So I would like to see what's in there. Hopefully there's something good in there. It's not just littered with bullshit and padding anything and not really telling you anything. That's what I think's going to be in there until I see it. But
what about you, Omar?
Redacted.
Redacted?
Redacted.
I know someone that looked at the first 10 pages of it and he said it was not redacted. But he said it was 60 more pages after that. He did not look, but the first 10 had nothing redacted on it.
There's a lot of redacted pages.
Is there?
There's even a meme template now where there's one page where the entire page is redacted except for one word in the center. And people just replace that one word with whatever the meme is. It's pretty funny to see.
That sucks.
What about you, Luke?
Oh, I mean,
you're like a soul brother to Vadim. You were into.
I am.
I mean, you're in my favorite conspiracy from you is that Freddie Mercury wasn't homosexual.
It was not.
Wait, what?
Yep. It was all big gay trying to get.
What is that again, Luke? So Luke, you really Luke really believes in the conspiracy that Freddie Mercury was not a homosexual. He does. He believes that.
I don't think we're on the same page.
No, and what did you just call it? Unlike Big Pharma, there's something out there called Big Gay that's perpetrating the myth that Freddie Mercury was gay.
Yep.
So wait, you think they revised history? He was doing everything?
No, he just wasn't gay, and then they made him gay to put gays into society. It was a good
Well, he was one of the first. Like,
yeah, he's fucking freaky, dude. He believes in some freaky shit. Like Vadim is shaking his head over here, like, dude, you're really bad.
Like that because he wanted to.
There's a conspiracy, dude. There's weirder conspiracies.
So thus it's now we've set the for the record that you are a conspiracy theorist, kind of.
Yep.
And that's one of your most famous ones. Your other one was like Michigan invented Saturday.
That's not a conspiracy. That's just fact.
Yeah. So you're fucking ring ding ding, dude. So okay. So what do you think about them releasing papers?
I don't think they'll release anything that's too damning. I think that there is definitely the CIA did it. But I don't know. They're probably still protecting people, and the CIA doesn't want the protect. I mean, like, that's what Trump said. He said there's still names and stuff that, we can't release it. I think he said that on Joe Rogan, and I don't know. I think they did it, but they're still not gonna they're not gonna put it in writing that they did it.
Of course,
they're not going to tell on themselves.
Yeah,
whatever documents would have been damning them were destroyed
long ago.
The day after.
Long ago. What about you, Omer?
I mean, the one thing that I saw...
Just redacted, like you're over it?
Well, yeah, the one thing that I saw was that one passage about how there was some CIA gray man or whatever who went out on the streets screaming like, they killed Kennedy! And then he was found gunshot wound to the head in his room. You hear about that?
Yeah, that's the Army captain. What was his name? Was his name Miller?
Jerry something?
Yeah, it was the Army captain. That's what actually is in the documents. Mm-hmm. The documents, the CIA, like in whatever documents, it talks about how he said it was a clique of CIA people. It was a small clique of people, and what they were doing wasn't as much as it wasn't the big conspiracy of the military-industrial complexes. They were making money off of narcotics, guns, and trafficking, and JFK found out about it, and they used their intelligence assets, and they shot him. And killed him, and it was the driver.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the driver thing's not in the documents, but there is that's the guy who died. Mm-hmm. The day after the assassination, it's in there that he went to somebody's house, said the CIA killed Kennedy, and they're coming after me, and I got to get out of the fucking country. And the person who talked to him wasn't. He said he was clear of mind, he wasn't high, and then he was found dead 6 months later in his apartment with a gunshot wound to his temple on the left side, and he was right-handed.
Regardless, my personal thing is if there's anything that I've come to expect from the federal government, it's that they will place a lot of red herrings to give people something. And I think the most likely option is, I do not believe for a single second that a small group in the CIA went ahead and did something like killing the president and then went and wrote that shit down and filed it away somewhere, calling it classified. I think if there were any documents, they were all fucking destroyed November 23rd, and they probably, knowing that they're intelligent, it's an intelligence
op.
They're a Department of Intelligence. They know better than anybody how good misinformation does. If I was a small person in the CIA that killed the president, I would probably shred up fucking whatever existed that tied me to it and put in a bunch of things with random people's names. I personally don't think that dude existed. They're like, let's put this in the file so in the future if anything gets uncovered, they're like, oh yeah, this dude who's been dead for the last 50 years, he was actually the one that knew something about it, whatever. I think most of it would be red herrings. I think if the CIA did it, they would place a lot of misinformation, and basically all the actual information would be long destroyed by now.
Do you guys even think it matters anymore? So Ben Shapiro is on, he released a thing where he's talking about it doesn't fucking matter. And he's calling all of us. Well, he was like, well, you talk about Kennedy assassination. Do you have any evidence? And he's like, you don't have any evidence. There's total fucking evidence, man. There's total evidence. There's the single bullet. There's the gunshot wound is in the front of his fucking head. There's a lot of evidence that shows that there's something fucking fishy is going on. So fuck whatever he says. But what he did say that I thought was that I've been kind of saying in my live videos and stuff is that it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. You're never going to know the truth. The government doesn't care. Like what? You thought that Trump was going to win and all the injustices of the world were going to suddenly appear,
Right.
and people are going to be held accountable for killing our president. I mean, most likely, the people who had the ability to do it were intelligence services. It might not even been the CIA. It might have been. We might have some type of intelligence that's not even called the CIA. The CIA might be the red herring.
That is something I 100% believe is that the CIA are the fall guys. That
Right.
At one point, the government figured out that there's going to be people digging, and whenever they do, you just tell them, "Oh yeah, it was the CIA."
Yeah, and it's something completely different, like lizard people and shit.
Well, no, I just believe that there's definitely an unnamed agency, hidden behind
That's really-
thousands
yeah.
and thousands and thousands of layers of
Yeah,
bureaucracy.
deep state.
And they just say, "Oh yeah, the CIA," and then they can go dig with the CIA, who are probably not nearly as evil as we're making them, but there's probably a very powerful evil corporation that we don't even know the name of because they probably change it every week.
We had a I did I think a live video with you guys one time, and in my ramblings I said, if chances are think of the worst possible outcome or explanation and then magnify that by 100, and that's probably what you got. Like, assume the worst of what they've done. And some dude popped in, like a customer popped in, and I recognized his face. Like, I read from a guy that's been here coming for a long time, and he said, he's like, "Look, I worked for this guy. I was his secretary's assistant for 20 years. What you said is dead on. I was there." I was there in the government for 20 years, or whatever. What you said, it was dead on. And he even offered to come on the podcast, but he never came back to the store. And he said that that's about the best you can hope for is just assume the worst. And that's probably what they did.
And then 6 months later, he committed suicide.
You took the words out of my mouth. Yeah.
5 shots to the back of the head.
But speaking of conspiracies, Vadim, what can you tell us about because everybody knows about trenches, everybody knows about drones, everybody knows about Kit, everybody knows about explanations of Ukraine. What, as an insider being from Eastern Europe, Latvia, you dated a Ukrainian woman, and you have relatives still in the area, what can you tell us about Ukraine that other people don't know?
It was multiple Ukrainian women. Well, as you guys know,
What do you mean multiple Ukrainian?
well, more than one.
At once?
I know it
No,
multiple.
not at once. Not at once. No, not at once.
This guy's a stud.
Oh, because is it like the Russian kind of community? Like there's a lot of Ukrainian chicks or what?
Kind of, sort of. Well, when the war started, when the special military operation started back in 2022, a lot of people started immigrating out of Ukraine, and I don't know how many, maybe over a few thousand of girls have moved to Florida. Just so you know, all over Tampa, Daytona. They just
I would
got
know
the free
nothing
ticket.
about that.
Yeah.
You want citizenship?
But so the war. Let's go back to the war. So I've been following this conflict since it first started, and when the conflict first started,
2014.
2014,
Okay.
absolutely. Which back then, if somebody would say out loud this was like a CIA operation, you would be deemed crazy. But now it's like a proven fact. Everybody knows about it, right? So
What do you mean by that? Everybody knows that's a CIA operation.
CIA has staged a coup in the country to remove the acting president and turn the people against the people. Because Ukraine, first of all, it's only been Ukraine for less than 100 years. It's been Russian for close to 1,000 years, like Russia, right? And half of Ukraine, which is Eastern Ukraine, is completely 100% Russian population. Russian schools, Russian language, Russian everything. And the west of Ukraine is like Western Ukrainians, Ukrainian language, Ukrainian things, basically.
Yeah, so Kiev is an ancient city, and it's always
Correct.
been a part of the Greater Russian Kingdom, right?
Exactly.
Or the
It was
Empire.
called the Vikings back in the day. The Rus Vikings were basically out of Kiev. So
Yeah.
in 2014, when that coup happened, and what happened was right afterwards, Ukraine started banning Russian language in Ukraine, especially in the eastern Ukraine. They wanted to close down all the Russian
In
schools.
Donbass.
Exactly, in Donbass, Lugansk, yes. And what happened was they basically sent their army. Back then, it was not supported by any other countries, including us. It was just their own army. They sent their own army into the Russian part of Ukraine to basically clear them out. People of Donbass,
What do you mean clear them out?
put the Ukrainian law and take it by force. like by force, close the schools, try to ban the language, churches, all that stuff. So they send their forces, which was back then were really weak, because the Ukrainian army was never like really strong. It's strong now because of all the support, training, weapons, everything else. And there's lots of contractors fighting in Ukraine for many years already, from US, from Australia, from Poland, from you name it, every country. But back then, it was just the people of Donbass and the Ukrainian army. And when they started coming over to Donbass, people from Donbass and Lugansk, regular people that worked regular jobs in the mines, mechanics, just regular people, those people basically created their own militia and fought with the Ukrainian military. And Russia did help them with supplies. They sent them aid, this and that, but Russian soldiers were not active army soldiers, were not fighting in Ukraine.
Well, what about the there's proof that it was Spetsnaz who came in after the coup.
Proof to came in where?
Oh, like there's pictures of Spetsnaz, like it's supposed to be Ukraine or Eastern Donbass militia, and they're fucking clearly using Spetsnaz weapons.
Well, weapons can be used. Doesn't mean it's Spetsnaz. So listen, I followed this really, really closely, right? I watched videos on GoPro of the people fighting back the Ukrainian army that basically overtook them. And actually want to talk about a couple of people that have been somewhat forgotten. They were really never in the Western media, but those people were real heroes. Real heroes. And there was 3 of them, and there were 3 badass motherfuckers, just straight up like that.
Okay.
And some of those people had previous experience in the military. They all served, because, you know, in Russia, Ukraine, you have to serve whenever you're 18 or whatnot. And when that conflict first started, people from all over Russia started coming to the eastern Ukrainian side to help them fight the Ukrainian army. And one of those people was Arseny Pavlov, also known as Motorola. It's actually this gentleman right here. That's the camera, right? This used to be a soldier and quickly became, he was actually the first person that started videotaping his fights on GoPro. And then everybody kind of followed afterwards. He became pretty famous and rose to the ranks and became like the commander of the rebellion army. Along with him fought this guy. His name was Givy. He was actually a local from Donbass. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was actually a miner in the country. And then this guy right here, Alexander Zakharchenko, he was the one that basically oversaw that whole operation in the early 2014, 2015 fighting against the Ukrainian army. So these people, within 2 years, were able to defeat the Ukrainians that were trying to come over and take over Lugansk and Donetsk. They basically defeated them, they kicked them out, they took many prisoners, and the war somewhat stopped for some time. But what happened afterwards was really shitty, actually. So, starting with Motorola, which is the first guy that I showed, he had security with him at all times. He married this beautiful girl he rescued, and this guy was living in like a 9-story building. And one day he came home with his security, was going to his apartment, got into the elevator with one bodyguard, went to the top floor. As soon as the elevator got to the top floor, elevator exploded, and he was killed. The next guy was Givy. And they, Ukrainian intelligence, or maybe with the help of CIA, they actually got his girlfriend to bring an explosive device over to his office, left it under his desk, and when he went to his office, it exploded and they killed him. That's 2. The third guy that oversaw the whole thing, so he was very hard guy to get to. So he had multiple securities with him, very, very loved by everybody. And that guy was going to this restaurant, his favorite restaurant. And what happened was they snuck into this restaurant in the middle of the night and they placed the explosive underneath a table where he normally sat. Next day when he came over there, his security went in first, cleared the building, and then he walked in with this beautiful female Russian reporter. The moment they walked in, restaurant just went off and killed him, the girl, and a few other people got injured. So they took him out one by one, the leaders of resistance. Right? And this was, if I'm not mistaken, this was right around 2016. They all kind of went within that whole year, one by one. And that was kind of like a shitty way to do it. They couldn't defeat him in battle, so they took him out, with spies, basically.
Irish style.
Yeah, that's exactly IRA style. Yeah, absolutely. So afterwards, they continued to harass the Russian population of Ukraine, and they did it for years. They did it for years. They did it for years. The people in eastern Ukraine begged Russia to help them fight the Ukrainians. They begged them for a long time, until 2022. Until the last administration, Biden, Kamala Harris, specifically...
How do you say Kamala Harris? How do you say that?
I said Kamala, didn't I? Kamala Harris.
It's Kamala.
Kamala.
Ask her to pronounce your name, Vadim.
Yeah, right. So everybody here in this country thinks the war started in 2022. I'm glad that you know that the whole thing really started in 2014. And the final straw, what actually drew the Russian forces into Ukraine, was the threat of NATO being introduced to Ukraine.
Why is that such a big deal? Why can't Ukraine be NATO? Isn't Latvia NATO?
It is. Why can't Canada have a Russian base, or Mexico have a Russian base? I believe some time ago in Cuba, Russians wanted to have their own base over there. And what happened then? Cuban Missile Crisis, right?
Yes.
This close to World War II. So that's why. It's just NATO made a promise to Russia years ago that NATO is not going to expand. Yeah.
It was Clinton and then Bush.
Well, no. The promise was made right after World War II that NATO is not going to expand like 1 inch. And then when the Berlin Wall fell down, if I'm not mistaken, that's when they said, no, NATO is not moving 1 inch. We're staying where we are. And then NATO, like you said, is now everywhere. Latvia. And I used to go to Latvia all the time. My grandma, she passed away now in 2018. But I used to go and stay with her. And my grandma's apartment was like here. And then where your building is, where you do all your gun stuff down there, it was a NATO base. So I used to go to the stores, grocery stores, and meet soldiers from U.S., England, Canada all the time. And it was actually pretty cool, so they were like, where are you from? How do you speak English so well? And it was kind of cool.
I think it was like first, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that Clinton first told Putin when he was new that they wouldn't have Ukraine be NATO. And then Bush Jr. told him a couple times. And so the United States had told the Russians for forever that they wouldn't make Ukraine NATO. And then Kamala Harris said at the Munich conference that Ukraine could be NATO, and he invaded the next day.
Exactly. And, what we heard on the news, it was an unprovoked, invasion, this and that. And, I want to be clear on this. So I'm talking about this and my thoughts as an American patriot. I grew up in this country. I've been here almost 30 years. In less than a year, it's going to be 30 years. It's just I'm educated when it comes to that stuff. And I followed it from the very, very beginning. Podcasts, interviews of people actually on the ground. So I never just relied on the news, what news are telling us. Because as we all know here, news want us to know certain thing. Exactly, yeah.
So 2014, that's when Russia took Crimea, correct?
Correct. Well, Crimea was actually annexed because, again, Crimea is like 90% Russian. And those people wanted to continue living in their own ways, like they lived for generations. They did not want the new rule. They wanted to have Russian schools. They wanted to have Russian language. So people voted, and I believe it was something like 92% of them voted to be part of Russia, just like Lugansk and Donetsk also voted years later, and they were annexed almost immediately. So it wasn't taken over by force. It was taken because people wanted to be part of Russia and did not want to abandon their ways of living.
How did you get along with Ukrainian women if you feel this way? Is that why you're not with any Ukrainian women now?
No, absolutely not, actually. So, no, because a lot of people in Ukraine, and I actually have a lot of Ukrainian friends. I do. I grew up with a lot of Ukrainian friends.
Okay, so that's a good perspective. So, what do they think?
Well, a lot of them at first were outraged whenever the 2022 war has, started. But a lot of them now understand what's really going on, how much people Ukraine has sacrificed like pawns, just threw them under fire, how they're picking up people off the street when you walk in with your family and you're a military-aged man and you just get taken off the street into a van right to the front line. So by now they understand. So
let's talk about that for a second. Like you it's hard to. I've seen videos of it happening often, but you never know what to believe because you could just be our intelligence services and whatever. It could be propaganda. How much of it is true?
It's very true. It is 100% true. It's been happening all over Ukraine. They've taken. That's why they've been military age men have been fleeing left to right. Left to right. They've been trying to flee the country, and now the last I've heard, it takes something like $15,000 to $20,000 US to be guided out through secret ways through the border to escape going into the military. So it is 100% true. It's you know how Trump likes to say, I'm a big Trump supporter, by the way, but Trump always says multiple times over and over again, if I was president, this war would have never started.
Yeah.
Like, we all heard him say this multiple times,
Absolutely.
right? Well, he's right. And this war never would have started because Trump would have never threatened NATO in Ukraine. That was the one thing that pushed him over the edge to actually go in and do something about it. So, and at first, a lot of people supported it. Even like the contractors from all over the world, they came to fight for Ukraine. And you can, if you look around online, you can find a lot of interviews with some of these soldiers that went to fight for Ukraine, and then they came back. The ones that came back, their actual experiences with how they were treated, what they saw. It's crazy, man.
What do they say? Because all I see, like, I look into it, and I see like they're pro, like either you see, people from the Foreign Legion are not whatever the equivalent is in Ukraine. You see Americans fighting, and they're all pro being there and think it's a good thing. You don't see people coming back and saying, "Yeah, this is bullshit."
Well, I saw quite a few people talk about their experiences, how they were basically thrown in with, they were promised one thing and they were thrown into the battle with like minimal equipment and stuff like that. There are some people that do get taken care of really well over there, especially those people that are, videotaping their experiences. So obviously,
so it's propaganda.
Oh, absolutely, man. Propaganda's everywhere. Absolutely everywhere.
Do you think, is there a lot of like natural resources in Donetsk and Luhansk? Like, is that the reason they won't just give it up, or is it more of just like they won't give an inch?
They won't give an inch, not because of resources. It's because of only one thing. It's because of the people. It's because of the people. They've been asking for help for years, to be left alone, to continue living their lives. That's why they won't give it up. They only care about the people. So people on the news for many years since the war started, the main narrative was Russia fighting for land. And once they take that land, they're going to go to Germany, they're going to go to Latvia, and they're going to just keep taking land.
Well, shit's about ready to pop off in Serbia, though, in Bosnia.
Yeah, I don't even know about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there's a similar situation happening in Bosnia right now, which the guy, I think his name is Dodik. Like he's like you have Bosnia, and then you have the Republic of Srpska or some shit, and the Republic of Srpska is Serbian, and then Bosniaks and Croats on the other side, and he's been defying, it's because the majority of their state is Serbian, and he's been defying the Bosnian government for years, and now it looks like that it might become armed conflict, and he has the backing of Putin. So the thought is that they'll send in Russian troops.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I promise you that. So I met about a year ago. I'm not going to tell you where, but I met a guy, right? I met a family who were, it was a German family.
Okay.
And I started speaking to this guy, and the guy basically, he had kids with him and his wife, and the kids and wife walked away to look at something, and he told me he's very afraid. And I said, why are you afraid? And he goes, well, Putin, Russia. And I mean, well, what do you mean? Well, he goes, when he's done with Ukraine, he's coming to us. Like, this is what they're telling them in Germany. And this guy, grown man, like 45 years old, like believed it with all his heart. And I said, brother, you don't got to be afraid, I promise you. This is not about Germany. It's not about you. Like, don't be afraid. But people over there are so, like, brainwashed with that. What did Zelensky tell Trump in that White House briefing?
We would feel the influence.
Exactly. And what did Trump do? How did Trump react to that? Absolutely. But people over there are brainwashed with that. Like, it's not even funny. One thing I also want to say. So, in the very beginning of the conflict, there's been, have you heard about the Nazi stuff? The Nazi...
Astov.
It's Azov.
Azov.
Well, there's multiple ones. There's multiple ones.
I do know that the white supremacist Woodstock was held in Ukraine every year until the war started. You guys know about that?
Yeah.
The big death metal. I've told that's one of my stories. Do you know about that, Omer?
You've mentioned it quite.
Well, this is as real as it can be. There were so many, and even the foreign fighters that came back. I saw interviews when they talked about just the Nazi ideology, crosses, and Hitler in books, and the reason they're doing that is just to piss off Russia more because Russia did fight the Nazis, and if it wasn't for Russia, Nazis would never be defeated. Russia lost 32 million people during that war. Let that sink in for a second. 32 million people lost their lives fighting the Nazis. And then they picked up the whole Nazi thing. But this was really early on. A lot of those people have already been killed or captured. So I watch the Russian and Ukrainian GoPro videos of soldiers. And right now Ukraine has a battalion. It's called the 3rd Battalion. And a lot of guys, good guys, if you just listen to them, how they talk, you can tell about a person just by kind of seeing what he does, how he acts. So a lot of them are not bad, right?
And you can speak Russian, Ukrainian, and English, right?
I don't speak Ukrainian. I can understand Ukrainian.
How different is it?
It's pretty different. People often joke that it's like a drunk Russian language. But hang on, I lost my track of thought there for a second. So the reason I brought that up is the Nazi stuff. A lot of them have been already killed or whatnot, but still to this day, that 3rd Assault Brigade, which is supposedly they're actually really well trained, pretty badass freaking soldiers. They clear trenches, and if you watch their videos, they don't, at least on camera, they don't kill prisoners. They treat them fairly, and it's still called the 3rd Battalion. 3rd Battalion. What else? What does that remind you of? Third Reich.
Third Reich, yeah.
Yeah. So it's all symbolic. It's all, I don't know why they went about it this way, but they idolized it. And even, I believe it was a year ago, there was some kind of in Canada, there was some kind of a briefing or whatnot. And I think a Canadian Prime Minister, if I'm not mistaken, praised this old Nazi guy who got up and they made everybody clap for him, he was a hero that fought the Russians and this and that.
He was an SS officer.
An SS officer.
No, he was an SS camp guard, something like that. But I remember, yeah. And then everybody got bummed out about it. But that whole area has a lot of even Latvia has ties to the Germans.
Yes, absolutely. Because
Latvia did a lot of collaborating during World War II. Ukraine was worse. But that whole area, the whole area did collaboration with all the outlying areas before they got into Russian proper. Did a lot of collaborating with the Russians, and the Ukrainians did some really nasty shit.
Yeah.
Very interesting seeing the whole enemy of my enemy is my friend thing play out, because it seems to happen in most conflicts where it's these guys don't like Russians, so they side with Nazis because the Nazis fought the Russians.
Well, the Germans sent in intel officers months in advance before Operation Barbarossa. Months in advance, they sent people in to galvanize the nationalistic elements in all the border countries around Russia. So when they got there, that there'd be people ready, operatives ready to pounce and to do their dirty work.
Well, I was saying in the way of you see it in other conflicts as well, people who don't like Israel will go and start praising and idolizing terrorists, or people who don't like America will start praising these pirates for shooting at aircraft vessels. The state of the world now is if they're fighting the guys you don't like, they're the good guys, and it's.
What about Zelensky? What do you know about him? Was he a gay porn star, or there's all these rumors about him? Do you know what was the real deal? Was he really on a fucking TV show where he was a history teacher and became the president of Ukraine?
Correct. Yes. And
do you guys know that?
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
Super crazy.
He was a TV star for 4 years. I just know him because I've seen the videos, and it looks like gay dancing.
Oh yeah, he played piano with his genitals and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely, dude.
He even shit on Trump over that. He posted a picture of a piano that said Trump on it. But Trump was a movie star or a TV star. and
Right,
Reagan
but-
was a movie star. It's I feel like the whole actor to president thing is not super out of the ordinary.
But he played a TV star he played a history professor who became the president of Ukraine unexpectedly.
During the war, and basically people thought like he was a perfect scapegoat for somebody like, just for example, let's say the CIA was a perfect person to use, a perfect person to make a deal with, that people liked, people saw hope in him, and they made him president of Ukraine. And his whole, when he was running, his whole thing was about ending the war, not starting the war. And that war was not going to get started. But us, unfortunately, because of United States, the war actually did start. They had the agreement in the Minsk thing, where they basically signed off, this is what we need, and Ukraine at first agreed to it, and then the U.S. said basically, nope, don't agree with that. And war went.
The UK.
Yep.
And
Sad.
yes, very much so, because it's the original that when they had the deal ready, and then the U.S. and the UK pressured them into not taking that deal, and in the similar sense, a couple years before the war started, or more than a couple years before, but Russia asked to join NATO, and NATO denied it.
Multiple times. Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff where, steps were taken to make sure this either doesn't happen or ends. And at each point of the turn, somebody stopped it. Somebody put their foot there. No, this must go on.
I don't know. Like, so I all I know is that war is bad. Like, I mean, I like shooting and I support military and people who are in the military like it. Like, special operators like being special operators. They like getting into shit. They like doing things like that. They like war. But, I remember like our old production manager, I asked him, like, why do you want to do that? Like, why do you want to, he's like, cause I want to, what did he say? I want to get involved. I want to get involved in shit. I'm like, what does that mean? He had some term for it. I'm like, what does that fucking mean? He's like, fucking violent shit. And I'm like, all right, that's what he liked. And not in the U.S. though. But I just know that war is bad. I know from growing up, and being involved in the punk rock scene and just the things I learned in Southwest Florida, that like war's not a good thing. Someone's gaining, and the poor people die. Yeah. That's what I know.
It's good for the money.
It's good for the money, like but you do see the side of the Ukrainians where like they invaded and try to take Kiev and couldn't do it. But my big thing too with the war in Ukraine is that Russia could win at any time.
Absolutely.
At any time Russia could carpet bomb, could do a million different things. They have a million different assets of, they could do tactical nuclear weapons. They could do Moabs, and they don't do that. They're fighting these conventional wars, trying to grind Ukraine down to a standstill.
And you know why, right?
No. That's why you're here.
To minimize the death of the civilians. Simple reason. To minimize the death of the civilians. Because we all saw what happened in Gaza just recently.
But that's completely different than what the American media tells us about Putin.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we, the United States, we need an enemy. It's just how it's been for years. We need to have an enemy. It's just how it works, man.
It's like Shark Coast. All my employees think I'm the enemy. They need someone to hate. So they all hate me.
That's not true.
Oh, it's completely true. I'm the big bad.
But how about this? How about how this war has now, after this war, no war is ever going to be the same. No war is ever going to be the same.
We were talking about that. But here's the problem. Like, so me and Luke were just talking about that in pre-prep. Like, no, it's one of the wars that, if you look throughout history, where it changes everything. Like, one of them's the Civil War. One of them's World War I. Like Civil War changed tactics. World War I changed tactics. And now you have the Ukrainian war, which is everything is changing again. But it's not total war. Like, meaning that the Russians are holding back their resources and not really fighting the way they could fight.
Exactly.
But you do see similar things happening in Gaza with drones and similar fighting styles. But like but keep going. I'm sorry, I interrupted your thought. But
That's not.
it changed war forever. I mean, I'm sure Omar is just dying to talk about it.
Meat grinder. It's I personally see the usage of commercial drones in a wartime capacity to be equivalent to the invention of the machine gun in World War One. All the tactics were built around the machine gun not existing. So when World War One kicked off, they get men to line up single file, real nice and neat, and charge all at once into one dude behind a machine gun that guns them all down. It ended up being the dumbest thing you could possibly do, but nobody would have known that before because wars hadn't been fought with machine guns before. Same things with drones. Like modern military tactics, when you introduce the fact that anybody can see everybody at any given time, and you can just send a little flying toy to go and then blow them up, it's a meat grinder. You're sending people to the front line to experiment on how war is fought with this new technology.
Yes.
Can you?
Yes.
Can you imagine for just a second here? So, U.S. spent almost 20 years in Afghanistan, correct? Right?
Yep,
Almost 20 years.
Yep.
Can you imagine Taliban terrorists having drones with explosives? How would that go for us? How much more Americans would have died just from that one little thing? Mm-hmm. And in the future, if we ever go back to Middle East, for example, people now know how easy and how inexpensive it could be to kill people. That whole war with Russia and Ukraine, there really hasn't been a war where two nations fought against each other that are basically equally matched. And again, like you said, it's not a total war, not carpet bombing, none of that stuff. It's basically one part has more people and they manufacture more weapons, and then the other part has, in more cases, better weapons, better thermals, even better training, so to speak, because a lot of Americans have been training Ukrainians in Ukraine. So that's why they've been able to keep up for so long. And then again, no carpet bombing. That's a huge thing that you mentioned. I mean, because that right there is trench warfare, house to house. It's a very different war. People speak the same language, basically, even though in Ukraine they now banned speaking Russian language on their side. So you cannot speak Russian if you're a soldier. You get punished for that. So, but they still do. I still watch the videos. They speak it. They try not to, but they do.
How long, Omar, or do you think it's possible for them to, like they had I remember I saw a video recently and there was a scrambler. It looked like some type of gun and you pointed at a drone and it fucking knocks it out.
Oh, yeah, we've had those for a while.
Shouldn't, I mean, how long are we away from technology where, it knocks out all drones and it makes drones obsolete?
I don't think they'll ever be obsolete.
Well, I get it, but like, so the majority of drones are low tech drones, mm-hmm. right? And like the Syrians putting them together. Mm-hmm. There's pictures and videos of Syrians putting them together and using them against each other when the last conflict flared up. But with, like, say if we got into something, like say, for instance, if America got into it with the Taliban again or something like that, somebody would quickly figure out a way to knock out their drones because their drone technology is lesser than ours.
But just as fast, they figure out ways around it. So like in Ukraine, jammers were utilized for a very long period of time, getting better and better at jamming things. And then the drone technology just kept evolving around jammers and switching to different frequencies and all that.
It's some geeky fucking hacker
and
figuring it out.
Eventually, what they figured out is if you just take a fiber optic wire and put it into the drone and then just have it drag this tiny, like, atom-sized
like a fishing
wire,
net, fishing line
behind it, then it can't be jammed. It can't be shot down by those scramblers. You're tethered to something now, but the wire is so long and so tiny that it doesn't make too much of a difference. There's always going to be ways around countermeasures, and people will figure it out as long as the war goes on. My favorite quote of all time is, "Before man, there was war awaiting for him, ultimate trade awaiting its ultimate practitioner." It's what we do. We innovate around things, and war is what we do best.
Well said. Well said.
I mean, I would think porn is what we do best. You should probably take that out. Fucking.
So not even EMPs will put them down.
EMPs don't really exist in the way that like media portrays them. It's theoretically possible that we get something, but realistically, the EMP that we can get consistently right now, as far as we know, is the one that goes after a nuclear blast. Mm-hmm. And even that EMP, almost all modern electronics resist. It's not as much of a big, like, it's not like in the Matrix where it shuts literally everything down. Mm-hmm. That's more of like a, subversion of reality where they're just kind of exaggerated to make it that way. But as far as the public is aware, there is no such thing as an EMP that'll just turn off all electronics. There's lesser advanced technology that might be affected by it, but even if it became a real threat where a country created like a straight EMP bomb that does exactly what it does in the movies, it theoretically would be very easy to shield against.
Not so much of a bomb. When I thought of this, so you have a unit that's going out, it would have some type of device that someone in the unit, or even multiple people, and it just sends out a radius. So I don't know, you can just let's say 200 yards, and it would just kind of kill everything within that 200 yards in case drones are trying to fly. And that's
I bet Elon can figure it out.
Yeah, that's why I figured the combating the drone would be.
And then everything on your side goes down as well. It's not selective. So,
but they could have, I mean, because they know what frequency or whatever it's used for EMP shielding or maybe something.
Mm-hmm. But if we can shield our own thing, we can use it a couple times, and then they'll start shielding it.
Same, just like
it's kind of how war works. Like you can go and push an inch, and then you'll get push an inch back, and you might have gone that first hit in, but then it's gonna basically stop being as effective. There's always ways around countermeasures.
Yeah.
And I don't think EMPs are as big of a thing as people make it out to be.
You know one of the best weapons against the drones? One of the best weapons. Everybody carries it now.
Turkish shotgun.
That whole wall right there with birdshot. And now
shot.
they even have the shells that they shoot out and net.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there has been extremely effective on drones. Extremely effective on drones.
The best solution is usually the simplest one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a bird. Shoot it.
I think that did you guys see the update from Sarah?
No.
So Sarah put an update on her Instagram where it's been confirmed through her sources that the recent Al-Qaeda guy or someone, recent terrorist who's been killed, was actually in charge of the New Orleans bomber.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it's she released it, and she would. I mean, I wish we'd try to get her back on here, but I think she's too famous now.
New Orleans bomber. Is that the Cybertruck or no?
No, not the Cybertruck guy.
That's Los Angeles.
That's Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Yes.
No, if you look on her page, like she's got like there's this guy who recently has been killed, but he was in charge of the guy from New Orleans, verifying that it wasn't a lone wolf attack, that it was Al Qaeda. But I think that, like, so I get it. Like, I get the point you guys were, like, the Ukraine war seems to be a different war, that, like, it looks like it's an epoch, if you will. Like, it's a whole different beginning, if you will. Like, just like World War I, just like Civil War, just like, Vietnam.
It's a modern peer-to-peer conflict.
But the thing that is, it's not, the resources aren't really there. Like, it's not really, like, the entire might of the United States government is not behind it. Money, but like it's more of they're testing shit out. Like, I think if what scares the fuck out of me are terrorists here in the United States with drones, which is very real.
I think that's going
to which I think the reason they brought Trump into the inauguration inside. There's just too much of a chance of somebody fucking taking C4 and flying a drone into where his area is and hurting him. Even if there's explosion, proof glass or whatever, it could still fuck you up from the blast wave. But I think that eventually somebody's going to figure it out and fucking do a mass casualty event in the United States, and then we'll figure out how to combat drones and then put an end to it.
It's more like we'll learn to live with it. I don't think I don't think there will ever be a modern conflict fought ever again unless we like completely wipe out civilization and start over. There will never be one fought again without drones in it. I think drones are going to be a staple of warfare from now on, the same way machine guns are.
Do you think drones will be like chemical weapons where they'll be banned by the UN or something?
Good question.
I don't think you can make the humanitarian, because it's no less suffering than getting blown up by a Reaper drone or even artillery or an unguided munition. Banning drones would be banning drones would be like, it wouldn't make sense with all the other things that are allowed, because it's not less humane necessarily than any other guided missile.
They're chasing around the tank with a drone. That's not very humane.
Yeah, but at the end of the day,
with them.
The reason that like flamethrowers and chemical weapons are not allowed, or even hollow points, are because they cause undue harm or pain. Getting blown up is not that. Psychologically, it can be used in that way, but you could say the same thing about a Reaper drone. You could say the same thing about any guided munition.
Yeah, but a Reaper drone is it's not fucking chasing a Russian around a tank with a fucking dildo strapped to it.
Exactly.
Well, theoretically, it could. We have missiles that can be controlled.
Yeah, but they don't have fucking. They don't have large sexual apparatus. Like there's plenty of videos with the drone having a fucking big black cock on it.
Oh, I'm not defending the humanitarianism of drones. I fucking hate drones. I think it's the way to fight warfare. But I'm just saying you wouldn't be able to get the world behind it saying like this is so much less humane that it's got to be banned, and B, even if it was banned, they're so cheap and easy to get your hands on. There's no way that it would actually stop their use. Because I mean, right now, if you look at the war, it's illegal to bomb, people who are surrendering, who are unarmed, who are, getting taken away in stretchers when they're wounded,
hold on.
but it's still happening.
There you go. So there's plenty of videos where the Ukrainians or the Russians are usually we just see Ukrainians just chasing the Russian, and the Russians just. I mean, how many videos have you seen where the Russian?
And then they're also laughing in their thing, and like thing is like so. That's the one thing about the fighting. Russians. Every video I've never seen them like enjoying killing as much as the other side does, which is.
I've seen some pretty nasty videos of the Russians, but I mean, it's you don't know what you see. It's all propaganda. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't seem to be when they're doing drones like the drones are chasing the guys and they clearly are trying to surrender and they fucking kill them anyway.
Oh yeah. I see that video in my feed like 8 times a day without fail.
I would love to see your algorithm.
It happens so consistently that it's like, it's the same thing. There are war crimes happening right now as we speak. And just because you called it a war crime doesn't mean it's going to stop happening.
But I think that the point Luke made where they might ban drones one day, I can see that.
Yeah, I think I could.
I could see it totally. No, is it cruel and unjust? Absolutely. I mean, war is cruel and unjust, and war is hell. But there's plenty of evidence where the troops are trying to surrender, and they just fucking smoke them anyway. Plenty of it.
But what's the difference between that and artillery, for example? If you're trying to surrender toward
and hovering, stopping, staring, and you can put your hands up or a white flag, showing that all right, I'm out of the fight and I'm disarmed. And the drone will hover and still come in. Missiles don't stop. Missiles don't circle. Reaper drones don't come in, float. Be unhumane, tease you, and put sexual apparatuses on them is different, I think.
But that's already a war crime. You could make the same argument as if a tank were to roll up to an unarmed guy or a guy without explosives and just sit in front of him and aim its gun at him and do the same thing. Like, the drone might be more menacing, but in my opinion, there is nothing about the drone itself. The act that people use the drones in is something else that's already a war crime. There's nothing about the drone itself that would merit the world coming together and saying this is not allowed anymore. That's my take, anyways. Plus, there's so much.
So that your drones are allowed, but hollow points aren't.
Hollow points are banned in warfare.
Yeah. So how can you fucking ban hollow points but not ban drones?
Because in the eyes of when the world got together after World War II, getting blown up was fine, but getting hit with a hollow point wasn't. But
I'm just saying that there's maybe. I mean, I can see people getting behind it.
Yeah,
I can maybe not anytime soon, especially the United States, or because we're like, oh fuck yeah, let's use these. But I bet I bet you see a mass casualty event inside U.S. homeland done by cartel or done by terrorists. And I bet you will see, drone technology to where they can knock them out, and there'll be a movement to say, you know what, it's inhumane. But if you have a guy trying to surrender in front of a tank, that people usually jump out and take you prisoner.
Or they don't.
I'm sorry?
Or they don't.
And that's a war crime.
Correct. So is circling around someone who's trying to surrender and blowing them up, but you're not banning the tank. You wouldn't be banning the drone. The act itself is already a war crime.
Well, I guess because there's not hundreds of videos out there, tanks doing
correctly,
it, yeah. Drones.
That's the other thing, is that the intelligence gathering capability of drones is like the FPV drones that you see kamikaze into people. That is shown a lot because it's gets clicks or whatever it is. But more drones are being used in an intelligence way, where they're quadcopters who are hovering really high above the sky, and there's fucking thousands of them, and all they're doing is observing the battlefield, and they usually communicate together. But drones will always be there, at least from an intelligence standpoint.
Yeah, I can see that, but just not flying and blowing up people. That's all I say should be banned.
Whoa. Hey,
Dean takes a stance.
have you guys heard about the recent operation the Russians pulled in Kursk, in the Russian part that Ukrainians have took over? That
There was a tunnel, and they went through the tunnel.
it wasn't a tunnel; it was a gas pipe. It
gas
was a
pipe.
gas pipe, and they went 800 people, 14 kilometers, full gear, and you can't even stand up in it. And that's like they're saying to this day, this has never been done before by anybody. And a lot of those guys actually ended up in the hospital afterwards because they cleared the gas first and they pumped oxygen in there and they tried to help as much as they could, but people still got gas poisoning. But that was pretty crazy, I thought, man. I saw the whole little documentary on it and just I couldn't believe it. Like they lived in that pipe for weeks.
Wow.
For weeks, 800 people to rescue the people. That's insane.
What does your dad think about the Ukraine? Like, what does your family think of it? I mean, you obviously like you were pro. I mean, I don't want to say pro-Russian, but you've got a whole you have definitely the Russian perspective, but you're Latvian. So why? To explain the genesis?
I'm not
of that.
Latvian. I'm Russian who was born in Latvia. Latvia is same as
Got it.
Ukraine. Same as Ukraine. Half Russian, half Latvian. When I was born in the Soviet Union, Latvia was
didn't know.
part
Don't
of the
get
Soviet
mad.
Union. No, I'm just saying.
Russians are fucking scary.
In 1991,
Big Russian dudes, they're fucking terrifying. Have you ever seen Highlander?
the original one?
Original one.
Yeah.
He was Russian.
No, he wasn't.
Yes,
Was
he was. The original
don't
guy.
know.
Oh yeah, the
Somebody
original.
fact check that.
That's fucking fact check it, dude. The original dude from the original bad guy from Highlander was Russian.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, so you're Russian, born in Soviet Union, but just like Latvia, just like Ukraine, there's Russian people and then there's Latvians, and you're Russian. Got it.
My parents. So my parents are pro-Russian, 100%, and my parents moved to U.S. when they were like in their 30s, right? I moved to U.S. when I was 12 years old, so my whole life is here. Like I'm an American. I grew up here, went to school here. You know, all my friends are here. This and that. So my parents have definitely been following this even closer than I have. But my parents like mostly watch like Russian media news, and that's like their only source of contact. My dad does watch a lot of videos that I watch that are now on YouTube. Perspectives from
Where was your dad born?
Latvia as well.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they're definitely pro-Russian side. They're actually thinking about moving back to Russia.
I hear it's clean.
You talking about that guy?
That guy.
His name is Clancy Brown.
No, in this story he's fucking Russian.
Oh, okay.
You thought I said no? In the story he's Russian. He's called like the Krager or something.
So
We're
Vadim,
gone.
like in Latvia, is there a fear of a Russian invasion at all, or is there?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Latvia would never get invaded. All that is just fake news.
Okay.
Fake news. Russia is simply protecting the Russian people in the Ukraine that are Russian, and they don't want NATO in Ukraine. That's it. There's
Right.
two reasons, and there's nothing else. And I mean, that's the truth comes out sooner or later. And a lot of people, I don't know about you guys, but like I like Tucker Carlson. I listen to a Colonel Douglas McGregor, Scott Ritter. Those guys are very knowledgeable. They've been talking about it for years now.
For years.
The truth about the conflict, their side. And I look at it kind of like they do. Like I'm an American patriot, but I'm just like, I just know the truth. And the truth is ugly. The truth has been bent. It's been lied to us in the media. We've been told to hate a nation of people. You know what really pissed me off, man? When the whole war started, I could not believe this. So I grew up, again, in Florida. I went to high school. 10th grade was when I moved to Florida. And most of my friends I grew up with were Ukrainian, guys and girls, right? I spent my whole life with them growing up over there. When the war started in 2022, I started seeing posts on Facebook from a lot of those people. If you're Russian, you're no longer my friend. You are this piece of shit and you should die and this and that. People that I grew up with here. Anyway, like how do you act this way? Right? Like, what do we have to do with the war that happened? Right?
Nothing. Yeah.
So that's just the perspective that like how people think and how people behave was really disgusting, man. And a lot of those people actually like used to be like super posting about it all the time, but now they're starting to slow down. As you can see, the Ukrainian flags are going away from driveways, from this and that, and this new administration is taking a different approach to this whole thing. And
How do you see it ending?
it's going to end one way. Russian people in Ukraine are going to be protected. That area will be annexed, and the Ukrainian forces, the same thing that Putin said, get the forces, his thing was get the forces out of that part of Ukraine, no NATO, and the war stops. Simple as that. He's been saying it for years. Not just him. Many people in the Russian government.
Isn't it crazy? Like it's not in our media at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you've never, I mean, have you ever heard about like that perspective where it's Russian speaking people in how do you pronounce it? I say Donbass. Is that?
It's Donbass, Lugansk. There's a few other regions that I just can't think of right now, but there's a whole portion of the eastern Ukraine.
But it's Russian speaking, and then no one talks about like the militias that went in and fought a civil war between how long was the civil war?
It was about 2 years, dude. They broke into museums to take tanks from the museums, and the local mechanics modified them back into working vehicles, and they literally fought the Ukrainian army back then on technology that's from like the Afghanistan war. So these guys really kicked that, and I followed it pretty hard from 2014. I watched videos intensively on it, and I still do. I try to keep in contact, and again,
if you look on YouTube, there's lots of stories about the Ukrainian militias going into that region and like it goes into the militias and like there's anarchist militias, there's white supremacist militias, there's all kinds of fucking crazy people who are fighting, and they don't really go into the Russian side of it. They just go in that they're fighting. You don't really know why or what they're doing. But then like why would the militias going into that region if they're not from there?
Well, yeah, they don't really. That area is pretty well protected by now. Obviously, there's lots of forces over there.
Years ago.
Yeah. And listen, Russia has white supremacists too, by the way. It's in a lot of countries. So Russia has its own part. But the way Ukraine projected them and made them famous and made them the right thing, the way they promoted them was just incredible. And at first, on the news, they try to hide it here. But if you dig for pictures of their battalions with that whole Nazi ideology, is just insane. And I think they did it on purpose to kind of provoke Russia even more, because real Russian people, I know this, they will never forget World War II. They will never, you know that every single Russian person that I know has a relative that has either died in the war or been affected in the World War II. My grandmother, the one that passed away in 2018, I'll tell you a quick story about her.
Okay.
She was, I forgot how many sisters she had, but she had, I think it was a total of 4 sisters, if I'm not mistaken. And my grandma was the youngest. And one day they went out to pick up berries in the woods during the war. And when they came back, their house, a plane dropped a bomb, and their house was just a big hole in the ground. And they lived in this hole that used to be their house for many months to come. And Germans came through, and there were good Germans that offered them food and chocolate. But there were also bad Germans that came back and did unspeakable things to innocent civilians. So every Russian person I know, including myself, has relatives, friends who have been affected by the war. That's how big it was. So the Russians will never forget the Nazis. They don't mind being friends with Germany again, but they will never forget what the Nazis did. So whenever Ukraine try to portray them like some heroes and they're gonna liberate Ukraine, it was kind of hard to watch. Even though an American who was raised here, but still, with Russian background, it was difficult to watch. So I can only imagine how people felt over there fighting.
Now, so you're a conspiracy theorist. You're into cryptids and stuff like that. Is there any chance that part of your worldview could be done because of propaganda?
I wouldn't say so, because that is not. There's no conspiracy in that.
Do you ever step back and say, do I think this because of is it all a psyop and the images you see, the stuff you learn? Is it possible?
No, not that. Not that. Everything else that I do on the side, like, you know, the cryptid stuff, yeah, 100%. I think about it all the time, but not that. That is as real as it can be. There's proof everywhere on it. And the truth has been coming out for months now. And you'll see, sooner or later, the truth always prevails.
What do the Russians think of Americans?
Russians like Americans throughout everything, through the Cold War, through everything. Russians never had beef with Americans.
We gave them Ozzy Osbourne at the Moscow
Metallica.
Peace
That's
That's the
Festival.
best video ever. With like
Metallica, bro.
the helicopter flying through the crowd and shit. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I just know that we gave them the Moscow Peace
you-
Festival.
You got to watch. There's like a video. It's like Metallica, Pantera, some other people, and the crowd is like million. It's over 1 million people, and there's like all these. They're just going crazy, and there's like one of those Russian Hind helicopters flying down, trying to calm people down, and then they show like Russian like police, and they're like real like standing there, and then like a song later, they're like waving their shit around, going nuts.
Whenever Muhammad Ali was a world champion and was like a huge person around the world, right? Like Muhammad Ali had fans everywhere. And at that time, Russia was first becoming like a huge enemy of the United States, the communists. You know, it was a huge thing for many of the Cold War and everything else. Muhammad Ali was one of the first people that I know who's that famous, actually went to Russia during that time. And when he came back, you can pull up the videos of him. You can find it, how he said, like, what we're being told about Russia, it's like the most evil race of people and this and that, which are all Christians, by the way. He goes, a black man came to Russia, like, you know, with all that in the back of my mind, and how I was received, like what I saw, the welcoming that I got, the love that I've seen around the people. He goes, I just knew right away that this is like just the propaganda. It's just a nation trying to hate another nation. Like, and it's always the government.
What about you, Omer? How do you think the Ukrainian war will end? Have you thought about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we're pretty close. I think it's very likely that I think the mineral deal is the best way forward. I think that was genius, whoever came up with that. The whole idea that we're going to put American workers on the ground that are going to be mining for resources, and we split the profits with Ukraine, and then that's not necessarily a security guarantee, but Russia's not going to go and continue a war when there's American interests there. Like it's the best loophole I've found to have security guarantees without security guarantees. And I think that's probably how it's going to go. Whether or not how the map is going to look afterwards and all that, I have no idea about. But I think the mineral deal is the best way going forward, and I hope that's how it ends up being.
Do you know what a lot of by now Ukraine has like a lot of famous battalions and commanders, and I've saw interviews not recently of those commanders, and they're saying like, we lost so many people so far, and if our president Zelensky tells us, hey, there's a mineral deal and you guys got to stop fighting, you think we're going to stop fighting? You think our soldiers are going to stop fighting because of some mineral deal, because of all the people that we lost and we were forced to fight? So that's also very dangerous. Some politician who's not even that popular anymore in Ukraine, it's going to take a little bit more than him to sign a deal to stop that war. But like he said, it is close. It is close to some kind of a resolution, hopefully.
Do you guys think this is the most, like, I guess besides Israel and Gaza, do you think this is the most divisive war in American, like, recent times? I mean,
The Vietnam was way more divisive.
I think even Afghanistan or Iraq.
yeah, but the differences, I think, in Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan is you might not be for the Iraq war, but you weren't for the Taliban.
Oh,
And you were against the Vietnam War, but you weren't pro Viet Cong.
that's
You know what
a
I'm
great
saying?
point.
In
That's a
this
great
war,
point.
it's like, yeah, you're either pro Russia or you're pro Ukraine, and I think it's way more divisive than other conflicts, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way that I think about it is not even about the war itself. It's just about what it is to be in politics these days.
Right.
You're either on
Yeah.
one side or the other.
Exactly.
There's
yeah.
no like, I mean, there's the centrist view of like, oh, I don't like either of them, which is just the most cop-out thing to say.
Yeah.
But like, if you want to be involved, you're either all the way here or you're all the way here. And of course, there's people who are reasonable and, you know, want to have their likes and nots about both sides and whatnot. But at the end of the day, way more people are being pushed to the extremes on both sides, with everything, not just wars, but with everything political now, is more people are being pushed to the extreme ends. The middle ground is kind of dying out, even though I think me and Dean were talking about this before. The middle is the majority of people. The majority of people don't really care for both sides, but the extremes are the ones that are out there shouting, and the the loudest ones are the ones that are heard. But most people, I feel like, are in the middle. It's like, I mean, most Americans either believe what they're told by whoever that they're listening to, or they do not care at all. This is, on the other side of the world, there's these guys fighting these guys, fucking let them fight. And I feel like that's the American people's general opinion.
Well, I think their opinion now is that we let them fight, but we shouldn't be paying for it.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Absolutely. How about the people that wanted to take away our guns the most, sent all those guns and all that money to Ukraine?
Like the administration that thinks that you can't own an AR-15, leaving behind billions of dollars of the highest technology military-grade weapons to the Taliban.
Yeah, machine guns and all.
Night vision goggles, fucking Black Hawks, helicopters, everything we had just sitting there for them to use. And now there's propaganda videos that pop up on my feed of the fucking Taliban going off, wearing all U.S. kit, holding M4s, flying helicopters in the background, all being like, look at how tough we are.
With people hanging off the helicopters.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fucking...
They're not going to be able to fix them. That's the thing about the helicopters is like you've got to have trained people to fix those fucking things.
Well, they crashed half of them on the first week when they tried
the thing about the Ukraine war that I know when people are screaming for, when you see, beta people and liberal people screaming for us to send money, resources, people to go fight and go get into somebody else's business, you just look at it as suspect.
Absolutely.
I mean, I do. The one thing I do know about Russia is that we purposely tried to bankrupt Russia through the Cold War and through the arms race. Like it was a tactic that the CIA and the Department of Defense used. Like if we just spend so much money on defense, that Russia will spend so much money and it'll bankrupt the Soviet Union, and it'll wreck them because they'll have to keep up with us. And that's what they did, and that's kind of what they did in Afghanistan. You had the CIA arming the jihadists in Afghanistan and spending, I think it was even if we spend so much money per month, it'll bankrupt Russia and it'll make their government collapse, which it did indirectly.
And I lived through that.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, I have to look at it as suspect. I look at it but it goes back to being, from fucking, listening to techno music and punk rock and the Grateful Dead and knowing that fucking conflict is bad. It's war's bad. The only people who win in war are the only people who see the end of war are the dead, and the only people who win are the old guys sending the young people to fight. In spite of all the operators who like fighting. But it's I can't with a clear head endorse, fighting over there. But just the what we do know that our history our government has a problem with Russia. They have used dubious means to defeat the Russians economically and through proxy wars throughout our history. We're not being told the complete story. We're not being told the story of the Russian-speaking people in the eastern part of Ukraine. We're not being told the things that the Ukrainian government is doing. And we're definitely not being told about how the government got toppled, most likely by foreign intelligence, who probably was us. And so the whole thing and then what we do know is we sent $300 billion there.
Zelensky says 70.
You know what Elon should do? He should audit that Ukraine money.
I'm sure it's coming.
It will open doors that I don't even think Trump wants open, because I don't think that's coming. I think it was already been discussed, but that's a little too dangerous to do, because people.
It's a little too dangerous. I think stuff like I would love to know the truth about Kennedy. I would love to know the truth about Epstein. But at the end of the day, it doesn't affect my life. What affects my life is can I pay for fucking Lauren's volleyball? can I give Omar a raise? Can I give? No, I'm not. It's pure. It's pure.
It's like, what?
It's pure conjecture. Can I give Luke? I mean, I care about can I pay my bills? Can I feed my family? I don't care about but I do know that our government lies, and I know that war is bullshit, and it shouldn't be supported.
I'm glad you said that, because I figured this out a while ago, that a lot of people in our country, we mostly care about those things: paying our bills, taking care of our family. That's our most important thing, our business, what we do around us. And we can close our eyes on a lot of things happening around the world because we're being told it's for the greater good. But at the end of the day, it's not really for the greater good. No wars aren't.
Someone's getting paid.
Exactly.
I feel like on the bottom end, the actual, day-to-day person who has their opinions on the conflict, a lot of people view it through the lens of empathy, where it's like, oh, don't you have basic empathy? And that's how they see a lot of issues, is that the average person gets duped into believing a side because they think it's the nicer thing to do. It's the kinder thing to do as a person. When the people at the top don't believe that, the people that are actually pushing the policies, you think a congressman gives a fuck about being kind or being nice to people?
Yeah.
Somebody's profiting somewhere.
How many millions of Africans have fucking died in the past 30 years? There's the casualties in Sudan right now are, I think, about around 1 million. Fucking million Rwandans died in Rwandan genocide. How many Somalians have died? How many people have died on the fucking continent of Africa over the fucking stupid ass wars that have gone through there in the past 30, 40 years?
And you don't hear about
millions.
Because people aren't making
because
money.
People don't give a shit about. They're making money, but they can't, because it's all I see. And again, it goes back to my point where it's fucking bullshit, and I don't support shit like that.
And Omar, what you said about being nice, I also think there's the inverse to that, where people are psyoped into thinking, oh, yeah, I'm defending my country by going, halfway around the world to do some dumb shit.
The thing I hate, the thing I hate the most is fucking puffy, pasty people screaming for war. Motherfucker, you've never been punched in the face.
Yep.
People you have puffy, pasty, beta newscasters asking for American support of a war thousands of miles away, where they've never been punched in the face. They're not cold. They're not poor, and they're not sending any of their children to go die.
And they're yelling for it.
They're yelling for it.
Yeah.
And that's the most heartbreaking thing to see, is most of the people doing the fighting, they don't even care about the side. They just got selected, and they said, this is what you're going to do, and they have to do it, or they get shot most of the time. And it's, this is the most captured war of all time. Everything is recorded. Everything is online for you to view on some dude's Telegram channel. And the amount of times where it's
not my algorithm.
The amount of times I've watched, I watched this 7-minute long drawn out knife fight between a Russian guy and a Ukrainian guy, and they're just fucking stabbing each other, just not lightly, just, knife fight to the death. And finally, the Russian guy fucking pokes the Ukrainian guy in the neck, and the guy falls on the ground. They just start talking. He's like, well fought. That was,
No, the Ukrainian, because the whole thing is in Russian. So Ukrainian guy asks him, okay, you defeated me. Give me a few minutes here to say goodbye to the sky and to my family. And the Russian guy goes, okay, let go of me. He lets go of him, and he talks about it. Now, here comes a follow-up to that story that you guys did not know about.
Oh, God.
That Ukrainian soldier was later shamed by their own people in the army, or whoever high-ups, for losing that fight and asking the Russian guy to basically give him a minute to say goodbye to his family and to this guy. He was shamed across. So that just... Who the fuck does that? Right? Who does that? Crazy.
They're just normal people. They're guys. There's a very powerful image talking, just showing bodies and just, hypothetically going this is Vladimir. He fucking likes playing Skyrim and has his, son was born 3 days ago, whatever. And he's lying in a ditch blown up by a drone because he was told to. And it's the people that are actually doing the fighting most of the time don't have anything to do with any of this. They're just guys. It's never the people who make the decisions that fight the wars. It's just guys. And it's even more heartbreaking when they speak the same fucking language.
Yeah.
I have a friend named Kara, and she started she had big ties to Russia. So in the gun industry, when it was started popping off, everybody, we were concerned selfishly, like, oh fuck, now we can't get AKs. Oh fuck, we can't get steel ammo. it was a really, really big deal. Like everybody, I mean, people, fortunes are made, people's lives are paid for because of the Russian ammo industry. Tula, Balom, Wolf, like and like Tula. I drove down to Miami and met with like leaders of Tula because they were going to open up a plant here, and they were looking for shops that could distribute their ammo. Like I've got pictures on my Facebook, me sitting with Tula people. And I asked Kara, like, you know, because even back then, like everybody thought the Russians were scary. And, you know, because it's what we were hearing, like, oh, they're going to invade. And Kara said they're that all the Russian people that she met, they're just like us. They want to make money. They want to have their families. They want to go on vacations. It's not, you know, this scary place. And it's, the war, it's divisive. It's divisive, and if there's a pasty fucking person yelling for battle, you know, who hasn't been punched a day in their life, you got to look at it and say, hey, you're full of fucking shit.
I think there's a Stalin quote about that. Oh, it's like 10 people dead is a tragedy, 1 million people dead is a statistic, or whatever. You really start to lose the, you know, grasp of humanity when you start talking about numbers this large. But, you know, 300,000 dead soldiers in a conflict, each one of those is a person with a life. It's not just numbers on a board. It's not just pawn pieces. There's real consequences to everything. And
it goes back to what I said about 32 million Russians who died in the World War II.
You can't even comprehend that number. That just, you know, you can try to think about, you know, how much money that would be, that's 32 million lives. That's guys with lives, families, interests, hobbies, just gone.
It was heavy shit.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Before we go, we've got to talk about Omni energy drinks.
What a segue.
These Omni people, they load us up with free Omni energy drinks for our podcast, for our shop, and they're not going to pay us for a sponsorship, but they're going to give us free drinks, and they're powerful stuff.
It's my 4th one today.
What's up with that pistol laying on top of those energy drinks?
Sometimes we have show and tell. And just if Luke pulls anything out, I was gonna this is I like shiny guns, and I've got a whole wall full of just shiny fucking vintage shit, and it's some Smith. What is it, Luke?
I think it's a 459.
Yeah, it's a 4. I'm gonna try to get a dual holster thing like Denzel Washington in Training Day.
Nice. Yeah. I thought it was a Beretta at first. When I first looked at it.
It's an old school Smith that I was going to bring for show and tell in case because Omer obviously brought his rifle. Yeah, it's clear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm fucking kind of fuddy. I like weird shit, shiny guns and old AKs and old SKSs. So I guess I'm kind of a fud when it comes to that.
That's Denzel all day, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. He had to do those fucking things. You know what I mean?
Right or left? Right or left?
Vadim,
right or left?
Vadim, are you an AK guy being a Russian? I know that's probably
You know, my father is more of an AK guy than me. I'm more of an M4 guy, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Even though I do believe that the AK, like if it comes to an apocalypse, full-blown apocalypse, and you don't have your cleaning kits, AK you can walk around, it will last probably more than the M4 will. But then again, you got Omer over here, told me earlier today, how many, 12,000 rounds with no cleaning in that thing? That's just crazy, man.
There's a fucking inch of carbon on my bulk carrier.
That's insane. Still running good, man. So
it's an experiment for me. I just want to see how long this $800 rifle lasts. Like, it's fucking never failed me. It's fired every single time. I've treated it about as shittily as you can. I personally think the whole AK's more reliable thing is a myth more than anything. That's my take. I think, you know, if you're comparing it to 1947 versus 1956 era rifles, maybe, but modern ARs, I would say, are pretty fucking. I mean, it's an enclosed system. Even the whole idea that, like, you know, they'll deal with mud and debris better, and dust will make an AR jam. I think that's all just boomer lore.
What do you think? What do you think of the Carcano rifle that was used in the Kennedy assassination?
What do I think of it?
Yeah, because you are like the firearm dude. I mean, is the Carcano rifle in the game?
Oh, it's in. They put it in Call of Duty. Yeah.
It is in Call of Duty.
Yeah, I use that shit in Warzone all the time.
Do you really?
really?
Like, what do you think of the Carcano rifle with the whole Kennedy thing? Is that like that's not on your? See, I'm fucking boomer again. Like kids, I guess kids today your age aren't really obsessed with like the Kennedy assassination how people were in my day.
I am. I just don't think the rifle is that unique.
Oh well, the rifle didn't work, and it was impossible to fucking take that shot with that rifle.
I don't know. Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Carcano rifle was a rifle used in, I think it was developed in World War II, and it didn't work at all. And for people to like, and if you take the Carcano rifle and try to make a shot like that, people have tried to do it. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Like it was impossible to like it was notorious for blowing up.
I think Brandon Herrera did it.
See again, I don't watch that. That's not in my algorithm.
That's like the AK guy, bro. Like the AK guy, the most American AK guy there is.
He recreates assassinations now. He gets the exact gun used and he recreates it on ballistic gel dummies. It's kind of fun to watch.
And he took a shot from with the.
I don't think I watched that video specifically, but he made one on the Carcano and Kennedy. He made one on fucking John Wilkes Booth. He shot a fucking ballistic dummy back of the head with a Derringer. He's done a bunch of those.
I watched like one of the Kennedy things that I went down a rabbit hole with. There was a guy who was tactician, who was a law enforcement tactical trainer, and he got into the Kennedy thing and then really started researching the Carcano, and it's kind of impossible. And then early in the Warren report, like there was different people that said, yeah, that you can't, it's not going to work.
Well, it's got a cool feature that I really like, where the round you fire ends up on the gurney. Perfectly intact.
Perfectly intact. Look, we want to thank Vadim for coming and talking conspiracy theories and the Ukraine war. We like Vadim on here. You might see him on here again. He's a perfect guest for the podcast, and he's a dear friend of ours. And thank you, dude, for coming by. Yeah. I want to thank you guys, too, for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
And if a special shout out to Dean and Eric, because Dean and Eric have to drive a fuck ton, man, so far. And it's really a nice thing that both Eric and Dean stay afterward because they have to drive far, and it must be a pain in the ass, and they do it every Wednesday when we shoot the podcast. Thank you guys.
Committed. Thank you.
We will see you again.